here.
Hello, I'm Debbie Kitterman.
And I'm Brandy Kitterman.
And we are here to challenge you
and equip you
to dare to hear the voice of God. Wow, we won't even tell you how many takes that just took, but Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
That's right. Debbie and Brandy is back in the house. Can I tell you that I keep telling her that our audience wants her back and she doesn't believe me.
That's not it.
Yeah. So anyway, so she's obviously not working right now. And so we've been able to get her back in the studio with me. So I'm just kind of praying that things shift and change for her so she can do that. But I wanted to talk with everybody about this week, hey, Happy New Year. I released the word of the Lord that he gave me this last week.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of stuff in it. And there are a lot of people that are releasing their words for the Lord for 2021. And the Lord just I was on a call and we were talking about something and the Lord just dropped this week's podcast episode into my heart. And I went, yeah, we totally need to do that. And that is about this prophetic alignment and aligning with the prophetic word that's spoken over your life. Because how many of you know that just because God speaks it doesn't actually mean it's going to happen?
Yeah.
We actually have to do something about partnering with and aligning with. But then I also wanted to do something too, because like I mentioned at our church, we have this proclamation service that happens every year. At the end of the year. It's my favorite service of the entire year because it's prophetically driven and it's all about worship.
Mm-hmm.
And that there were 6 of us that released words. And while there was a common thread that ran through them, they were each from a different perspective. But yet when you bring them together, they're all a part of the whole. And so, people were like, well, which word is for me? And so that's why I kind of wanted to talk about that, because I want to talk about the importance of getting a personal prophetic word for the year.
Yeah.
Not just like you can listen to all of the big name prophets or prophetic individuals and see what they're saying. But you, at the end of the day, have to take and say, God, what piece is for me? And then really ask God, what do you want to do with me in this year? So I thought we would talk. This might actually turn into a 2-part episode just because of everything that we might have to talk about, but who knows? We'll see what happens. And besides, I have Brandy in the studio, so we're going to keep her here as long as we can today. But I wanted to talk about, I think first, let's talk about the importance of choosing a word for the year and then for yourself. And then really talk about what prophetic alignment is and like how we partner with the words that are spoken over us. So, so I'll go first. And when I started blogging, oh my goodness, I don't know. Well, I started and then it was way back when I launched my ministry in 2007 and I started blogging and somebody said, you're not very good at this, are you? Because I would just do it a little bit and I would only release like words that the Lord gave me sometimes, but not all the time. And I wasn't really consistent.
Yeah.
And so that's really what they were saying. Not that I couldn't write or that I couldn't blog, but that I wasn't being very consistent at it. And so it was like hit or miss. And then when I picked it back up to start blogging again in 2015 and 16, there was this whole one word movement. Now, I don't know if you guys know about this one word, but it's where you choose one word to be that word for the year. And it's not that you choose it, it's that God chooses it for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was funny because of some stuff that's, happening in our life, which I'll talk about for next week's episode. But that to go back and to look at the thing. So I did that. So I went back and I looked at the words that the Lord had given me all the way back to 2016, right? Okay. So this is interesting because sometimes like you get a word and you think you know what it means, but you don't really know what it means until you get to the end of the year and you look back and go, oh Lord, that's what you mean. And I'm going to be real. I start the year off really good. Like I'm going to tell on myself for 2020 in a minute that I started out really good with that word and then COVID hit and then all that went out the window. But how the Lord brought it back Brandy's trying to look at my notes to see what my words are.
I'm seeing what her words are.
Yeah. So for those of you that cannot or that are listening, I'm holding up my phone and she's like trying to glance at my the little print. Okay. So when I was like, well, one word. Okay, because we always would get a word for the church, you know. My husband and I pastor, we're senior pastors of church. We've been doing it. We're going on our 8th year. And we've been doing that. And we always would get a word for the church for the year and with a scripture. And so we would kind of do that in our own life. But I really liked this one word because you're surprised about how much can really happen in one word. So in 2016, my word was advance advance. And he gave me scriptures, and you can go to my blog, debbiekitterman.com, and you can actually type one word in there or word for the year, and you can go back and see all the ones that I've released and that I've had. But I'm going to give you kind of a quick rundown. So, unbeknownst to me in 2016, so in 2015, I had just released my book, Milk Eggs Prophecy. I self-published, and it is actually the book that got me the book deal for the Gift of Prophetic Encouragement book that was picked up. It's a traditionally published book with Chosen, and it was picked up. It's this one, but it came from Milk Eggs Prophecy. Although people say, well, are they the same? No, actually, they're not. There's like my testimony is the same, but everything's rearranged. And if you try to go find Milk Eggs Prophecy, you probably won't find it. And if you do, somebody wants to charge like $1,000 was the
Yeah,
last
I
time. It
think
was
so.
ridiculous. I was like, what? Okay,
Because
oh
it's
my
at a
God,
point
great.
now.
Because when I signed the contract, I had to agree to pull that off of the
Yeah.
market. So anyways, long story. So advance. So in that thing, it was just like I felt like I had been doing a lot in ministry, and that the Lord was saying that that was going to be my year to advance. And I had just released that book at Thanksgiving time. It had just come out. And so I thought the Lord was really talking about opening doors that way for me. And I didn't really have it in my mind about a traditionally published book deal because I had been at a conference in early 2015, and I sat at a table with Liz Curtis Higgs. And we were talking, and I just said to her, here's my problem. Here's what I'm doing. I just don't know what to do, because when I've talked with agents and publishers, they had no clue what I was talking about in the prophetic. And really, the premise at that time was that there was a lot of misuse and abuse about the spiritual gifts inside and outside the church, and the Lord was giving me a fresh perspective on the gift of prophetic encouragement.
Yeah.
And so of course, like, the mainstream people don't have a clue about that, and then there's very few charismatic publishing houses. And so what she said is, you have to settle it in your heart, Debbie, of what the Lord is calling you to do, whether it is traditionally published or self-published. And there's no shame in self-publishing, because the publishing industry has been really revitalized and renewed and changed so much because of Amazon and Ingram Sparks and all this stuff. And so
Yeah.
when she said that to me, here's somebody who is a profound author, like so many books. And she said, they don't even take my stuff, but there's some of my own stuff that I'm self-publishing, or I had self-published. And I was like, okay, well, here's Liz Curtis Higgs, bad girls of the Bible author, who's telling me you have to settle what God is saying to you and then do that. Unbeknownst to me, with advance being my word and journaling on it and reading the scriptures and pressing into it that year, that is the year that I got the publishing deal
Mm.
from Chosen. And you look back from and you're like, wow, I really did advance. Not as much as like I had, that was not even on my radar. So God can do that. The second one in 2017 was Dwell. 2018 was Vision. Yes, like 2020 Vision, but like I always tend to be a couple years ahead of, what's ever happening. So Vision, but the Lord was really talking to me about my vision and my purpose, and write it on the wall so that all that can run by. And that was the year my book released. And so I was supposed to be intentional. 2019, that was Miracles. And that was the year that we lost three people that were very close to us. Started with my
Mm.
aunt, my best friend's husband, died suddenly of pancreatic cancer. And, and we were contending and believing for miracles. And then we lost my dad in September of 2019. But I knew that we had seen miracles of healing when we had prayed for each one of those individuals, which extended their life. My dad's for over a year. My aunt had been extended for 7 years. And while my best friend's husband didn't make it to when we were all going to meet and pray together, there's been miracles that have come out of that situation. And so sometimes we get a word and it doesn't necessarily play out the way we thought it did.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah, because I thought with the miracles, I honestly thought that my dad was going to be completely healed
Yeah.
on this side of heaven. I know he is completely healed. He's healthy. He's whole. I'm sure he's climbing. He was a timber worker, and he loved to climb trees, and he loved to do that, and he loved to fish. And so I know what my dad is doing in heaven with Jesus. So but it was a difficult season because I was like, wait, Lord, my word was miracles, and he's like, yeah, but look at all this. He made a way for me to really spend as much time. In fact, I spent more time with my dad in 2019 than I had because we don't live near each other.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. And then what God gave us as a family right before he passed away, like just days after we were all together as a family. And then 2020, my word for the year was dream. Yeah. And so here's what I'm going to tell myself, right? So what the Lord said was dream, but that I needed to be purposeful and intentional about dreaming with him in 2020. So I start out the year really well. And usually I make it, until Easter hits because as pastors, Easter's really crazy. And then I pick it back up during the summertime and I revisit it, at the mid year, but not this year. Not this year. This year I did not. So I was intentionally, purposefully to be dreaming with the Lord at the beginning of the year. And then COVID hit. And then that was the furthest thing from my mind. And in fact, I didn't actually revisit and look up what this word for the year was until after January 1st of 2021. Because as I was praying into what the Lord was wanting me, I had to write a letter, which we'll talk about that in the next podcast episode about some stuff. But that I had to sit down to write a letter, and I was like, Lord, what do I need to say in this? How do I convey what I need to say to people? And he was like, well, this is what happens when you dream purposefully with me. And I'm like, oh, is that my word for the year? And then I kept thinking, that's not my word for the year, but why does that seem familiar? And so I looked it up. I had to go back. I had to look it up. And there it was, 2020. Like, I think it was my first blog post of 2020. And my word was dream.
Yeah.
So much so that it was so crazy because my Bible study released in 2020. Even my screensaver still says miracles from 2019. Like I was hanging on to that word. And here's the thing: is just because one year ends and another begins doesn't mean our words go away, because there's seasons. And we're just now in 2021 seeing at our church like miraculous healings happening with people because it's something that God has positioned in our heart.
Yeah.
And so what about you, Brandy? Like, have you ever chosen a one word or?
Did. I don't remember my word for 2020 though, which is
That's
crazy
okay.
because like it just ended.
COVID. I'm just
I
saying.
know. Honestly, I feel like because of that, it just feels like a different year, like
Yeah.
like it was the beginning of the year was so long ago. But yeah, I have one year. I think my word uh was it adventure or
Yes.
journey?
Yes, it was.
It
I
was one of
remember. I
those.
think it was Journey. I think you actually had Adventure one year and Journey the next, but I think Journey was the one.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've gotten my words. I don't do very well at, obviously, as we're seeing now, remembering them. But it is nice having like, especially at the beginning of the year, it's almost like, and you mentioned seasons.
Yeah.
And just because like the year is over does not mean that season is over. So like one of your words from like the previous year could still carry in, even though you have a new word.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. Because I think with the word dream, we started to purposefully dream. And how that happened was, I mean, we're over 50 now, and I won't say exactly how over 50 we are, but we're beginning to look towards retirement, right? And so we are working with somebody to help us kind of like plan for the future financially. And that was one of the questions that they asked us at the beginning of the year was, where do you want to be, when you retire? Like, not just financially, but what kind of things are important to you? You know what, the top of my list? Travel. I want to travel. I want to see the world. You know
Yes.
why? Because in 2019, we took a sabbatical and we got to go on that Mediterranean cruise,
cruise.
and I loved it. And I've been on the mission field in Europe before, but your dad has never been. So this was your dad's first trip, and I loved experiencing that. That's probably where you got the travel bug. So I'll be your travel partner, but we could probably bring your dad for some of them.
Do we have to?
We used to do mom and daughter adventures,
We
but we're
did.
sidetracking. And so I began to purposely, intentionally dream with God. And my husband and I, we began to press in, like, God, what do you have for us over the next 15 years? Like, where do we see ourselves? Where do we want to live? That was one of the questions because, depending on where we see ourselves living will also depend on how much like money we need for retirement, right?
Right.
So that was all that stuff was happening. And so there were things that we were looking forward to when he can officially retire down the road, 10, 12, 15 years, whatever that looks like, right? And so we kind of were beginning to put these things in place. And then we got to go to Hawaii as a family. And when we were there, like I knew my word was dream, but when we were there, we went to this little shop that was called Slow Yourself Down.
Oh yeah.
It was this like little hut in the middle of these, I don't know, it was like food truckville or
It was
something.
right outside the shaved ice place.
I know. And
It was like a food truck.
it was
and
like a food
then
truck.
There were some outlets, but it was like
Yeah,
this
it was
one store.
it was in Kauai, and like we just went there because it had been like it was raining the entire week, like except for the one day that we went snorkeling. And
Which,
there,
for the record, is not a bad thing for us because we're from Washington.
I know,
So it was pretty normal.
but when you're wanting to go see certain things and go do things, and it's raining so hard that
there
the
were some trails that were
closed and we couldn't go do some of the
Yeah.
things. So we ended up going there to get this shaved ice. And there was this little hut of a store. And I went there and I picked up this shirt and this sticker that was there. Like, this is my water bottle for those of you who are watching it. So it's like, slow yourself down. And I picked up a tie-dyed shirt and that kind of became my theme for the
Mhm.
year with COVID. Like, okay, Lord, what are you doing? He was talking about this reset. And that's why I think I kind of forgot about the dreaming purposefully with him, but I had already intentioned to do my year well with him. Um and really pressed into that for 21 days because we do a 21-day fast at church.
Yes.
Because and if you don't do a fast, it is a spiritual discipline that is so important, and it really sets you up for your entire year. But it really helps you, like, God, what are you saying to me? What do you want to do in me this year? And I want to give you my first fruits of the year. And so during that 21 days, we were doing intentional dreaming with God and purposing to do that. And in the midst of that, when we were in Hawaii, I got this slow yourself down, and that's what the Lord was really talking to me about, was dreaming with him and slowing myself down. And so I wear that. I have that sticker. And this year, when I was traveling with my some of my family, we were in Arizona, and my new one is this kind of tie-dyed shirt that says, "Take it easy." So God's still working on me on rest, and I've talked about this on podcasts where I'm
I was
not
gonna
very
say that's
good.
not the first time he's told you to
Take it easy or rest or slow myself down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm a
She's a
doer.
doer.
I'm not so much a beer, like be in the
No.
presence. And
Mm-mm.
one of the things that COVID really did was slow me down a lot.
You had to.
Well, yeah. I did actually travel a lot this last year. I got so many airline miles this last year,
Mhm.
but I also was being intentional about where I was going in the midst of flying in a pandemic. But I did slow myself down a lot and really honed in to hear the Lord. And I did a lot of stuff because out of the word last year that I released, there was this one piece about going north.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Was that my word?
That actually, I think, might have been your word.
I think that was my word.
Yeah, that was your word for a couple years ago. And so about going north, and really it's from Deuteronomy chapter 2:3 or
I
3:2.
don't remember.
And it really is like, you've gone around this mountain line long enough, it's time to go north. So basically, deal with your stuff, get healed,
Yeah.
and go towards God. God is north, right? So God was speaking to me about that. So that's really what 2020 was dreaming with God intentionally, which I set up for the first part of the year, and then slowing myself down enough to let the Lord to do what he needed to do in work in my heart, and really began to position me for coming into this next year. Now I'll be real. So what is it? we're recording this just a day before
Yeah.
you hear this, which is going to be January 6th. And so as the time we're recording this, I still don't know what my word for 2021 is. I have an idea of what it is. And I keep telling the Lord that can't be it. Um,
Oh.
but which means it probably is.
Um.
Yeah. But I do know that he's extending the theme of taking it easy and slowing myself
Mhm.
down and being intentional. But when so how does this play into all of these words that are being released for 2021, right? So when God speaks something, right? We don't just get to sit back and go, "Oh, that's good. I'm going to watch it happen." We actually have to do things to line ourselves up with what God is going to do or what he wants to accomplish in our lives because we have what? Free will. We have a choice.
Yeah.
And there are many times when I've made the choice to not line up with the word, even though I wanted the word, but I'm like, it's too hard. It's too, I'm kind of afraid. I don't know. I don't want to do it. And so that's why it's really important because even in the word that I released last week on this podcast, if you haven't had the opportunity to listen, go back and listen to it. It's called, I titled it The Year of Awakening and Freedom, but it's so much more than that because there's so many moving pieces.
That was your corporate
That
word
was the
too.
corporate word,
Yeah.
yeah, for the ecclesia. And really, it comes from Isaiah, where it's arise and shine, and the glory of the Lord will be about you. So I was trying to figure out, and not just that, but being a Psalm 23 people. And there's so many moving parts in there. And but I was like, Lord, there's so much here. What is it that you have for me? So even when you're hearing these from all the people that are releasing them, I've noticed even in the word that I release, there are threads and elements of similarities and spot on stuff that other people are releasing, other big name people are releasing, and what I've released. And I'm like, yes, I'm hearing God. But God, what is it that you're saying to me right now in this season? And what piece do I need to pick up? And that's the piece that I hadn't been intentional about doing in the years past. Last year was the first year that I did it. I took it, I broke down each of my word in 2020, and I broke down into different parts, and I actually blogged on them to say, what is God really saying in this piece? Because I think we can get lost in the words or the excitement of what those things are and miss the bigger picture. So that's why it's important that you ask God, what do you have for me? What is my personal word that I'm supposed to work on? And then how do I line myself up with that? And that's what I want to talk about on this next podcast episode is how we line ourselves up and what the importance of is of lining ourselves up when God speaks something because we get to partner with him. It's not just he gets to wave his little magic wand and boom, it just happens to us, which would be nice, but that's not the way it works. So let me challenge each of you to personally seek God for a word for the year
Mhm.
and to take some time, even if it's not 21 days, that you take some time in fasting and praying in the month of January to intentionally give God your first fruits of the year, and that you begin to position yourself to receive the fullness of all He has for you in 2021. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else from you today, Brandy? No, she's going to say some more stuff because I was just like, "Ooh, I'm so happy to have her here," and away I talk. Um, and so I really want to intentional. If you've never heard about the one word movement, it's really kind of cool. I have created and or purchased bracelets or different things where I've done myself so that that word is intentional. I have journals where I've Bible journaled the outside of it to match the word for the year, and then it's purposeful. Brandy has created me screensavers for my word, and as I confessed, I'm still stuck on 2019's word for the year of miracles on my computer. But just keeping that word in front of you, however you need to, and then finding scriptural support. That's the other thing. If you look on my blog, you can see all the scriptures that God has given me that go with that word, and then I pray into that. It's kind of like I have life scriptures, but then there's other things that sometimes God will have us camp on a certain scripture where we need to know something about it. It's
Mhm.
like Graham Cooks calls it an inheritance word, and that when he gives us something like that, he wants us to inherit the fullness of the meaning of what that is, and so we have a part to do in that. And I'll talk about that a little bit on the next week's episode. So, is there anything that you want to say or? Just, hey, everybody, Happy New Year.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Brandy's wearing her message of be the gift.
Wow.
That's one of the messages that I came out with my
Yes.
book. And so
Here. Oh,
there, be the
there
gift.
we go.
And mine is take it easy. And so in fact, but my Go North shirt, I need to order one. We did get them done and they're on the website for sale, but I wanted to change the design a little bit. So
Oh,
I know.
okay.
I know. For those of you that didn't know, I do have some t-shirts, some apparel actually in our store and you
Merch.
can yeah, merch. So, anyways, well, I think that's it for today's episode because I want to save the rest of the stuff for next week's episode that really talks about how do we prophetically align with the word of the
Mhm.
Lord that's spoken directly to us or corporately over us as a body, and what are some of the steps that we need to take. But again, with this week, I challenge you to set before the Lord for this week. And if there's a word of the Lord that was released corporately for 2021, go back and see which part of it resonates with you and see if there is a personal word for you from that particular word from
Yeah.
the Lord for you to enter in to and press into and break it down and see how God wants to apply it to your own life.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, so with that, I'm Debbie Kitterman. Thank you for listening to Dare to Hear the podcast, where we encourage you and challenge you to dare to hear the voice of God.
If you guys were encouraged in any way, we'd love to hear about it. If you could leave us a like and subscribe and
Yay.
rate our podcast wherever you're listening or watching. And then if you guys want to submit a topic,
Yes.
please send us an email. You can send it to info@dare2here.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we did that dream workshop, there was some good ones that they asked, but I was going to kind of wait until February because they asked a couple of questions about. There was a lot of people that have been dealing with nightmares, and just some night terrors and some things like that. And so there were some great questions that came out of that. And but we want to hear from you. We want to answer you. We want to respond to you and your questions. But we look forward to you joining us next week
Yes.
as we pick up this episode into next week. So until then, God bless. Have a great week. Bye.
I'm not in the thunder, I'm not in the rain, I'm not in the winds of the hurricane. Look to me, I'm drawing you near. I have called you, dare to hear. 'Cause there's peace in my presence, so do not fear. Oh, do not fear. I have called you, dare to hear. I'm not in the shaking that shatters the